Hey everybody, welcome back to My Name is Dad, the podcast, episode 2. Super exciting. This one is going to be a little bit more commentary, a little bit more opinion, and not so much personal story. But I will let you know that I am working on a multi-part series, basically about myself and a little bit more like kind of like biography kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm working on a multi-parter, which is going to be a lot of fun stories, a lot of good stuff. So, but before we get started, let's talk about our sponsor, Point B Grading and Turfgrass Maintenance, LLC. We provide grading services and turfgrass maintenance in the Phoenix area. And I do want to point out, when I say turfgrass maintenance, turfgrass does not just mean artificial turf, okay? It means turf grass is the big umbrella, which includes natural grass, artificial grass, right? But turf grass in the industry is considered all of those things. It's the entire playing surface is turf grass. So when you're at home and you hear turf grass, he just does artificial turf maintenance. No, I do it all. It's the whole shebang. All right. Please visit pointbgrading.com. And if you've got a question or you want a quote or something like that, go ahead and visit the website, or you can send me an email at pointbgrading@gmail.com. All right. This episode, it's going to be more of a political type episode, but I just want to give a little background before we get started here, just about myself, my political leanings, all that kind of stuff. So basically, I grew up a Republican out in the country in Central California, which is maybe the only Republican place left, except for maybe Orange County in California. So you got the Central Valley and Orange County, or maybe the only Republican voting blocks left in California for how it is now. Didn't used to be that way, but that's how it is now. As I've grown older and I've become more educated and just I've worked in government, local city governments and stuff like that, I have now become more and more libertarian, where I basically hate government in a way, or I don't trust government. I don't trust politicians, especially anything that comes out of their mouth. I just believe that government politicians are just businessmen, business people who are looking out for themselves and not actually looking out for the best interests of the people, and kind of in a way, looking out for the best interests of people is for us to look out for ourselves. So that's just kind of scraping the surface of all that stuff. But so yeah, I basically believe that both sides of the aisle, the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans, are full of shit. I hate both sides, and maybe you might call me. This used to be a term, but used to be called a South Park Republican. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but I don't like both sides, but I definitely hate the left side more than I do the right side. It's just that I know both sides are full of shit, but I definitely my values, my morals, my political belief, leans right and not left. All right. If you think about it, the Republicans and Democrats really aren't that different. They really cut spending. Typically, the Democrats, I guess, typically will spend more on social services sort of things, and the Republicans will always give the Department of Defense more money, but they never really cut costs. They never really balance the budget, now do they? They just continue on doing their thing, filling their own pockets while everyone else suffers. They destroy the middle class, and they say they have so many empty promises. They say so much, but nothing ever really happens. Nothing really changes. We make such a big deal out of these elections, but what really changes? Not much, really. And if you think about it, too, the Republicans are basically Democrats from 10, 15 years ago. Republicans, if you go back and you sort of listen to Obama and Clinton, when you hear those things now, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. And just think about Republicans on gay marriage. No one gives a shit anymore about gay marriage, but man, that was the biggest thing back in the day, right? You had like gay marriage, Obamacare, things about the environment and climate change. Now, I know most Republicans are against climate change, or not against, but they just don't see it as this big thing that's going to end everything. It's a thing, right? I believe in climate change. I believe in taking care of the environment and all this stuff. But I don't know if it's quite, we don't need to do the scare tactics of we're all going to be dead in 12 years or whatever it is, right? So, and again, I guarantee you there are Republicans now driving electric vehicles that were like, no, I'll never drive an electric vehicle. Oh man, that's terrible. I like my gas. I like my fossil, whatever. Okay. Again, Republicans are conservatives. We are just a lot slower we like to drag our feet. You know what I'm saying? And Democrats like to jump ahead, be super, super progressive, but maybe are getting so way out of control that they're even, they're losing their base in a way. All right. So now let's talk about the thing everyone's talking about the last couple of days in politics. Let's look back. So the first thing is we now have round 2 of Donald Trump as the president. And I mean, this time, honestly, it feels a little different. We have DOGE, Department of Government Equity, or whatever it is. The border is basically shut down right now. And like all the people he's kind of appointed, RFK Jr., all these things, it just feels a little different. Last time I felt like he was when he got elected, he felt like he had a lot of favors to give for people helping him out. And he appointed all the people who, were just political pawns. And he appointed all these people to help him that helped him get elected. But they weren't really on his side. Again, the politicians are in it all for themselves. And that's one thing that's what I always say is government politicians are not your friends. Okay. That's my thing. That's how I look at it. They're not your friends. They're not trying to help you. They're trying to help themselves. And if helping you helps them, then that's what they're kind of interested in. But really, they're interested in helping themselves and being in power and collecting money and putting it in their bank account. All right. So let's talk the State of the Union address. It's not technically a State of the Union. It was a joint session of Congress sort of speech, whatever. It's the same thing. All right. So if I call it the State of the Union, just know that that's all the same. All right. So I typically hate State of the Union speeches. They are extremely boring. They drag on forever. And typically they drag on forever because whoever's in party, that side is always clapping, standing ovations every 30 seconds for stuff that is just like, okay. This didn't need a standing ovation. Please just, can we get on with the speech here? And then the other side, it's just, they usually just sit there and they sit there and they just kind of look pouty. And yeah, they do clap for a couple of things that maybe everyone agrees on, we cured cancer, and then everyone will stand up and clap and all that stuff. But, typically it's very divisive. You can clearly see it. Half the room is standing and half the room is not. How is that not divisive? How is that dividing right there? It's visual. You can see it. You can see it happening. So the other thing about the State of the Union is there's just a lot of patting on the back. There's a lot of empty promises. Oh, look how great we're doing. We've done all these things that don't matter, that don't mean anything to you, or all these things that we're saying that is going great, but really it's not. And we fudge the numbers and make it sound like it's going well. And then a lot of, we're going to do this and we're going to be hard on China. We're going to do this and blah, 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 blah. And it never happens. It's just the State of the Union to me is always just a bunch of crap. But this one felt a little different. This one felt different because I think maybe just because it was so entertaining. So first of all, when the president of the United States walks in and they announce it, the president of the United States of America, and he walks in, everybody stands and claps, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, and it takes 20 20 minutes for him to walk down the center aisle, shake everyone's hands. But this time it was a lot quicker because only one side stood up. The Democrat side didn't stand up. They held the little signs and they just sat there. And usually everyone wants to come over and shake their hand and get a picture, blah, 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 blah. Because it's a big deal. It's President of the United States. But this time that didn't happen. That was the first thing I noticed. And then as Trump starts his speech, right, he's just going along and reading the teleprompter. And I'm sure it's a very professional presidential speech and all this stuff. But the Democrats just start into him, just disrupting and holding up their ping pong paddles. And the guy with the cane is yelling at him, you don't belong up there, blah, 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 all this other bullshit. And I get it. I get the point where, the Democrats, they talk a lot of shit about Trump. And so they have to back it up now, right? So if you're going to go to all your constituents, all your district, and you're going to be like, I hate Trump. He's the devil and he's the Nazi. Well, you better back it up when it comes to State of the Union time, right? So that's what they did. I mean, I understand that part, but again, it doesn't look good though. So all these people are yelling, blah, blah, blah. And to me, it was just like unbelievable. I'd never seen this before. I remember back when Obama was giving one of his State of the Unions and one of the Republican congressmen yelled, you lie. And he yelled it after because Obama was saying how illegal immigrants wouldn't benefit from Obamacare or something like that. And he said, you lie. And everyone was aghast. Everyone. I mean, Republicans, Democrats, all the media, everyone was like, this is uncalled for. This is ridiculous. This is the worst thing ever. What kind of country have we come to? It was like, this is Obama. It's not that long ago. So again, the ping pong paddleboard thing was just really stupid. The congresswomen wearing pink, the day after they voted that they're going to allow men in the women's locker rooms and stuff. They didn't even stand up for women's rights, but yet they're going to wear pink dresses. Again, it's all for show. They don't care. They don't care about you. That's the thing. They don't care about you. Okay? They care about themselves. They care about getting reelected. They care about being in office so they can have corrupt money going into their pockets. Okay? So basically, Trump starts his speech, right? And he goes into his speech, and the Dems are just, booing and disrupting, and the one guy gets kicked out. But what it does to me, and this is my belief, this is my own personal opinion, and I think Trump was going to stick to the professional presidential script. But because the Democrats were acting so terrible, okay, that it gave him permission. It gave him, in his mind, permission to start taking jabs at them, which he did. And a lot of them were actually really, really funny. And he was like, no matter what I say, none of these people over here will stand and clap. No matter what, I could cure the most vile disease in the world of all time. And these people just sit there on their hands. And it's true. It is absolutely true. That's what they were going to do. And that's what they did. Again, so the Democrats kind of cornered themselves with all their shit talking about Trump and everything. And then their disruptiveness, they cornered themselves. They gave free rein for Trump just to take jabs at him, and it was really good. The one where he called out, he was like, I really want to end this war. I'm paraphrasing. I'm just not word for word. But he was like, I want to end this war in Ukraine. We don't want it to go on any longer. But, the Democrats, that was the one thing they did clap for about the Democrats, giving aid to Ukraine. And he was like, well, it's probably going to go on for another 5 years. We keep giving them, weapons and money and stuff like that. And more people are just going to die. And he was like, I bet Pocahontas is really for that or something. But again, it's just so sad that, again, how far we've come since even Obama, So the other thing I do kind of like, and now that I'm getting older and I have kids and everything going on in my life, the shout outs to the kid with brain cancer becoming, a special Secret Service officer, and the kid getting into West Point, getting admitted, and the families of people killed and murdered and all this stuff. That really resonates with me at this point in my life. When I was younger, I probably didn't give a shit, but now it does. I can't imagine one of my kids being that unhealthy, having brain cancer. I can't I can't imagine the person I love being shot and killed. And, or would I do that? Would I be the hero in that situation too? I like to hope so. I like to think so. So a lot of that stuff really resonates with me, and all those shout outs to the families and stuff. I really like that stuff. Again, the speech was really long because of all the clapping and stuff. And again, it would be it'd probably be less than half the time, the actual speech, if there wasn't so much clapping and stuff. But policy wise during the speech, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what happens. Again, I never have high hopes for these political processes or political ideas. These ideas that whatever we're going to do this, we're going to do the tariffs, or we're going to do this and do that. I don't know. It just always seems like it's just a roadblock. It's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. And then they'll come back and say, look how great everything is. And then the other side would be like, well, it's actually not that great because look at these real numbers. I don't know. I just never have high hopes. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. Transitioning from that. So that was sort of my opinion on the State of the Unions and the future State of Unions. They will be just as divisive. And again, I went and looked after the speech. I always kind of check out Fox News and MSNBC and CNN, kind of see what they're saying. And on Fox News, they're just praising Trump and making fun of the Democrats, which rightfully for the Democrats should be made fun of for how they acted. But then over on MSNBC and CNN, their headline was Trump gives divisive speech at joint session of Congress. I'm like, well, the State of the Union and this joint session speech are inherently divisive. Again, you sit there and watch one half of the room stand up and clap every 30 seconds, and the other half of the room sit there and do nothing. So how can you say it? And that's how it is. That's how they all are. No matter if it's the most uniting speech ever or the most divisive speech ever, it's going to be the same. One half will clap, one half will sit there, and that's how it is. So I don't. Again, that's politics, and I don't like it. But that's the game we got to play. All right. So moving on, let's talk about the policies of Mr. Donald Trump coming up here. The first thing I just want to quickly talk about are tariffs. Everyone's talking about the tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. So tariffs are basically something that you learn back in school, like 8th grade or in high school or something like that, and then you completely forget. You're just like, oh, tariffs. Yeah, I remember that word. It's like truffles, tariffs. I don't know. That's what I think of. Tariffs are basically the way I describe them is that you can't tax another country. So it's called a tariff. That's the way you tax another country for bringing stuff in or doing whatever. Okay. But I guess the way I see how this is supposed to work, that, Trump is doing 10 to 25% tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. And I guess the way it's supposed to work is that, America, the United States, we export to everyone, and we export a lot of things. But, we're like part of our entire GDP is, 10% to Canada, 10% to Mexico, 10% here, 10% there. We're all over the place, right? We export everywhere. We're Canada and Mexico, it could be 75% of their exports come to the United States. So, and they're tariffing our stuff that we're importing or exporting to them, which makes it hard and they're doing it so that more people buy Canadian stuff or whatever, and they're not likely to buy American stuff. So let's just talk cars. So if there's Canadian made cars or whatever, people are like, oh, the Canadian made cars are made in Canada and they're cheaper because if I got to buy the American one, it's $10,000 more or whatever because of the tariff, right? So why don't we do that to them and make our people buy American made? And basically, I guess in the end, it's going to have Canada, Mexico, and these other places remove the tariffs on our stuff so that our stuff can be sold worldwide, where we're kind of just more selling our stuff locally. And, we're exporting this stuff, but with tariffs, which makes it much more difficult. So I guess in the end, we just want to make it easier for us to export our stuff, to be more competitive in the market of other countries, and, have us, make it seem like such not a bad deal here in America to buy American-made card or whatever like that. All right. So again, it's supposed to work. I don't know. I'm probably 100% wrong on this. I don't know either. Tariffs is something I probably learned in the 8th grade. And then you never heard anything after it until now. So, but it also kind of reminds me of like, I guess another example I could say is like pharmaceutical medicine, where like maybe, like some of these other countries, like we make a lot of pharmaceuticals here and we make a medicine that really helps treat cancer, whatever it is. But other countries will tariff it or they'll make a law saying like, oh, this medicine can't be sold for more than this amount of money, which is way under, which doesn't break even or make a profit for America. So now guess who has to pick up that cost is us, right? So, a piece of medicine we sells for $15. That's how much it costs. It costs $15 to make this medicine for a month. Boom. Right. But in Germany, for example, hypothetical, I don't know, they say, well, we can only charge $5 for this medicine to our citizens. Okay. Well, that's your law. Okay. There's nothing we can do about it. We want to help these people. Right. But who's going to make up the $10 now? Oh, us here in America. So now they charge us $25, to cover the cost, and also because they can't charge that over in other countries. So again, in my opinion, you're thinking about how come our pharmacies or medical is so expensive here and not in other places. That could be a reason why. All right. I don't know for sure. I'm not an expert. That's just my opinion. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next thing on my list here. And that is Ukraine President Zelensky and the meeting. That's what I call it, is the meeting. I know it's getting a little overlooked now because of the tariffs and the State of the Union address, but the meeting between Zelensky and J.D. Vance and President Trump, it's just that was something else. I never seen anything like that before, and just because of me. Over time becoming more of a libertarian, I'm definitely more anti-war probably now than maybe I ever was, except maybe when I was 18 years old and 9/11 happened and I was like severely scared that there was going to be a draft. I 100% thought it was going to be a real thing that, I might get drafted. I might get drafted and have to go fight terror, in the Middle East and all this stuff. That was a real fear. That was a real thought for myself. And this Ukraine war and the stuff going on in Israel, again, is a real fear for me, especially now that I have 2 boys myself. One is definitely very quickly coming military age in a couple years. And that's something that I don't necessarily want for him. I don't want to ship my kids off to war. I don't. So the thought of World War III is very, very frightening to me. But so President Zelensky, I think he's called President, Prime Minister, whatever he is. I don't know. President Zelensky of Ukraine is in this war with Russia. And basically the United States has been funding them and giving them weapons to continue the war. But it basically seems like that Ukraine has been bleeding. They're not going to win. The war has only lasted this long because we've been helping them, and that they're going to lose eventually. So I think when Trump comes in, he's kind of like, hey man, like we're done. Like we don't want to extend this war anymore. You're going to lose. We can't officially ever get like really involved because it's going to cause World War III. So we need to go to the negotiation table. Okay. And because we've helped you this whole time, we also want some of your minerals from your country that you're drilling, whatever whatever it is. I don't even know, but we want some of your minerals for payback, and we'll help you go to the negotiation table, and we'll be your big brother. We'll be standing behind you and by your shoulder and kind of flex our muscles to Putin and Russia and stuff, and we'll make a deal. But Zelensky was not about any of that, and basically got a big argument with Vice President J.D. Vance and Trump, and bit the hand that fed him. They're like, hey, bro, you'd be dead by now if it weren't for the United States helping you out and everything. So definitely not a good thing for Ukraine. I understand the part of trying to look tough for your citizens, and look, I stood up to Trump, blah 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 blah. No. But dude, you guys are in a war. It's not going well. I believe it is time to let's make a deal, get this over with, and move on with making prosperity and worrying about trade deals and stuff. So again, it just feels like a huge mistake by Zelensky. He said that America would feel it or regret it or whatever. He's already feeling it, I think. And again, so now he can go to the negotiation. So he has basically a couple options: just continue fighting the war without American aid and lose, or he can now go to the negotiating table with America and not get as good a deal as he was before, because America ain't going to quite be helping him out. And America's more about themselves and helping out, just getting peace. So he kind of shot himself in the foot on this one, I believe. All right. So, and then quickly, another thing I want to talk about, this just popped up and I added it in my notes real quick. So more of a funny note. I was watching the news the other day, and I saw this guy. I can't remember his name, but he has this website and made this algorithm or something, I don't know, where let me back up real quick. So I have begun investing just the last month out of necessity, basically. So I started investing and, starting another retirement and all this stuff. So I've been kind of just taking a look, and I was like, man, I think I was thinking to myself, man, I really need to, I think the way to go is to invest in AI. I think that's the boom has already kind of happened, but I think it's going to continue to go up and up and up. So I was like, what AI companies should I start investing in? So I looked it up and made sure that I, was like, oh yeah, I'm putting, 5% or 3% in of what I'm investing into this company and that company. And then the rest can go into these bonds and all this stuff. Right. So this guy, I saw this guy on the news again, because I've been investing. So I'm like, oh, something popped up like this. And this guy has a website that follows the stock trading of Nancy Pelosi. Okay. And it is called, it's www.quiverquant.com. Right. And I'm going to put the website in the show notes, of this episode. But basically since she has been investing in the stock market since 2014, you can see what the average growth is and where she's at. Okay. So it's the standard return, or how much the stock has risen, whatever. Since 2014 is 210%. Okay. So since 2014, basically you doubled your money if you just invested in the stock market, whatever. And a lot of that just because of inflation, all these things, right? But Nancy Pelosi is up 736% since 2014, well above the average there. So, and she's not the only politician doing this, right? There are other politicians. I'm sure they're all corrupt. They got insider information. But it's just kind of funny that, again, if you're asking, well, how does a person who makes $200,000 a year as a senator worth millions and millions of dollars? Well, here's an answer for you. All right. So this guy, basically what he does is he invests exactly what Nancy Pelosi does. And he's like, how can I lose? There's no way. And he's like, I'm up so many percent points and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I looked to see what I was investing in, the companies I picked. And one of them was, NVIDIA, who makes AI technology. It's not like Google, but they make the parts, or the infrastructure or something, whatever it is. NVIDIA, is one of the ones I chose to invest in, and is one of the ones Nancy Pelosi did too. So I was like, yes, doing good. But so again, I believe, again, just to kind of end here, I believe politicians should be paid way more than $200,000, whatever their annual salary is. Again, they should be paid more. It should be a very lucrative sort of job to be a congressman, to hold office like that. They should be paid a lot more to entice people to do it, to get the best and the brightest to want these jobs, right? Why, if you're so good and smart, why would you become a politician to make $150,000, $200,000 a year, whatever it is, when you could go into business for yourself and make millions and billions and trillions, right? I.e. Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is getting involved in politics because, you know, he has so much money, and because he has some sort of grudge against wokeness and all this stuff. But again, I think to attract, again, the same reason we want to attract the best teachers. Well, teachers should get paid more, right? If we want to attract the best teachers, if we want to attract the best politicians, the people who really care, we should pay them more, so they don't have to become corrupt. You know, they don't have to do these insider trading deals and all this stuff. They're just getting paid to do their job and do it well, and we hold them accountable. All right, and if there is anything that is scandalous or whatever, like, get out of here, dude. Like, we have some sort of rules, whatever it is. But that's kind of where I'm at. Like, yeah, let's pay these people, you know, $2 million a year to be a congressman, or $3 million to be a senator. So they're not quite so influenced by outside money and, you know, lobbyists and who's donating to their campaign. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just pay these people good money so they're not influenced so much by everything else. Is that possible? I don't know. Will people always be influenced by another $10 million? Probably. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but just seems like that's kind of how I feel. But I don't know. All right. So, if you do want to check out, what Nancy Pelosi's, stock market's doing, I will post that, and check that out. If you want to invest in that, go for it, man. Again, I don't think that, I don't think politicians should have insider information. I don't think they should be allowed, because if they do have insider information, they shouldn't be allowed to invest in the stock market, because it's supposed to be a gamble. We all can do it. There's a lot of 401ks and all this stuff that are riding on that. Again, they shouldn't have insider information. Again, if we just paid them enough money in the first place, we could say you can't invest in the stock market, but we're going to pay you $5 million a year to make sure that you don't. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm coming at. All right. Well, again, thank you very much for listening. I am working on a multi-part series that hopefully will be coming out soon, at least in bits and parts. Thank you again for listening to My Name is Dad.